Every productivity system eventually asks you to go all in on one thing. Either you go all digital using one app for everything like Notion, Obsidian, tons of apps out there, or you go all paper and focus on writing everything down. But at the same time, that may not be the right decision for you. I've tried these two approaches for years, but neither of them have stuck long enough to make it past a setup process and maybe a few months in. What I figure out is these processes can go hand in hand. Paper is for thinking, digital is for storage. When you think on paper, you're processing information differently. And when you go digital, once all that information is processed, then you get the benefits of finding, using maybe some AI tools and maybe some other processes that help consolidate that information that much better. So in this video, I'm going to explain exactly how I split my analog thinking on paper notebooks, pocket notebooks, other journals that we'll be discussing here today, and my digital tools and how those two exist together, giving me the clarity to process the information I need to, as well as helping me manage all the project tasks, as well as knowledge I gather on the day-to-day. So let's take a look at what that looks in practice. So I have here with me a typical setup of some of the things that I like using kind of a day-to-day basis. I have my planner, which lately has been this MeePlus planner. I have a few kind of notes and schedules that I fill in and move in and out as needed. I have some work notes in the back, and this is kind of what I use in day to day and like kind of keeping track of and moving things around very easy and without any problems or challenges. Then I have kind of my pocket notebooks. These are the ones that kind of come in and out of the pocket. Task list for the day, any potential quick notes, sketches, or anything that I may need in the future, those kind of end up here in the pocket notebook. And at the same time, I like keeping them just to have something on paper that I can use. Another kind of analog thing that I use a lot is keeping these note cards with information, kind of following Ryan Holiday's kind of note card system. So whenever I see something that I like, whenever I see something that I want to keep for later, I put it on these note cards, and then I kind of keep track of these. And this is kind of how I gather kind of all my knowledge, all the information that I want to use in the future. Those get put in here, and then I'm able to move them around and organize them in different ways. That's kind of why I also like this new MeePlus binder, just because I'm able to have different kinds of information in this one notebook. But then I can take a sheet out and move it to the next notebook, the next binder for longer storage. And I'm able to, again, use this notebook for different things. I don't have to worry if things are out of place or they may need to be overwritten in the future. So kind of similar process. And again, this is a new thing that I've got. Actually, MeePlus sent this to me, engraved it with the channel name. So I'm very grateful to them for sending this, and definitely there's a lot more content, a lot more video I'm going to be creating about this in the future. So coming back to this process, so this is kind of how these two analog and digital things going to come into play. So everything starts here, and then it gets moved into the digital storage. Most people don't really have a productivity issue. They have a thinking issue. A lot of times we're trying to optimize things that we haven't even understood ourselves. So that's why I like using these note cards as a starting point. And then going back to what I was talking about here, I then take this information and distill it in a couple different ways. And I do this both manually, again, type in either an article or just summarizing some of my thoughts. And I use some AI tools to help me kind of process this information. So let's go to kind of this Codex process. I call this my place folder structure, which is kind of inline and taking bits and pieces from the Para method by Tiago Forte and the ACE framework, Nick Milo, also on YouTube. I'm going to link some of these videos and channels down there if you want to find more information. I kind of adopted some of the things that worked for me and took away some of the things that were not working for me. So place starts from project, log, areas, and Codex and end. So the projects is kind of where the projects come. So anything that is active and requiring my attention, that's kind of where that goes. The log is more of kind of your calendar in the ACE framework, but more of the things that I want to keep track of. So any morning briefs or any maybe journaling activities that I do, that kind of goes in there. Areas can go back to the para method. That's just areas of responsibility. You have finance, medical, all that stuff. Codex is what I'm calling kind of my references, uh, my bits of information that get pulled into different areas and projects and logs and all of that. That's kind of the center of the system, and that's kind of what I'll be talking, expanding a little bit more here today. And then the end is kind of your archive, and then have some other miscellaneous folders, as well as kind of an AI Claude folder that kind of helps the process almost run itself. So let's go into the Codex here, and I'm going to be talking about a couple of things. Again, I have an inbox. These are some of the raw pieces of information that I get put in here, and this could be either I create them or find them online, and I kind of put them here. And I'm going to link an interesting video that I found from Better Creative, and he was kind of referencing someone else's process using Claude and some of the other tools. But this was one of the things that allowed me to merge kind of that gap between, again, having the physical note cards and understanding the information, going back to the books, stealing the information, getting into here, pairing them, and finding those connections to then create a kind of synthesis of some of this stuff that it's important to have. It's important to kind of keep track of. And I wanted to have it in a more digital space where I can search it, I can find it, then I can reference it in either videos or emails or any other documentation I have to produce. And that's kind of where that came into play. So let's go through a quick example. So I read the Einstein book a few years ago. And so I just fed kind of these pipeline, all the note cards and some of my thoughts. And again, I'm not going to go too much into detail because that's not kind of part of the video here today. But then you can see these kind of all AI generated basically, or produced based on the notes that I was feeding them. So high quality, again, summary and body of kind of the book, some of the things kind of summarizing the aspects of the book and the processes that kind of the biography comes into place. And it looks like you pull from both Einstein and Da Vinci and just kind of talking about the thought experiment method. So that's kind of one of the things that pulled, and finding that connection maybe between these two figures in history and looking at some of the things they did. And then you get a related section. So then I can go into, let's say, Isaac's genius pattern, and I can do the same thing, read through this. Again, all of these are things that I have read, processed, thought about, and then I put it back into the system to get distilled and then reference later. I can still go back to my note cards. It has its own reference system. I like kind of going through them and looking at them every now and then and just trying to figure out connections and thinking through those. But then using this new process, I'm able to just summarize this a lot more efficiently, but also just having a way that I can see the distillation and find maybe new connections that I couldn't make on myself when I was doing it only on the note cards. One of the best ways to process the information you're putting into your digital tools, your paper tools, is by using the super intelligent personal tutor for math and coding from Brilliant, today's sponsor. Brilliant is the fastest way to get good at math and coding. It actually makes learning these skills and these tools like solving a puzzle instead of a chore. It covers anything in math and coding from grade 5 to college and beyond, and is designed by experts from MIT, Harvard, and Stanford. Their comprehensive math curriculum covers anything from fractions to algebra to calculus, as well as their coding instructions for the new AI era, which we've been touching about here on this video as well. Brilliant trains you to think like an elite software engineer with focus on logical reasoning and debugging. And I actually used some of their courses to inform me as I was trying to launch my new website, which we can check it out in the link description below. But Brilliant was the tool that allowed me to understand kind of the ins and outs of both the coding aspect as the AI aspect, and how merging those two allowed me to create a website that is professional and great looking in a matter of a weekend. Brilliant makes everyone a math person, students with access to one-on-one tutoring, fill gaps early, build confidence, and pull ahead of the pack. And Brilliant is right there whenever you need it on your day-to-day. If you have some downtime and want to use your phone to learn something new, Brilliant is right there. No scheduling needed, and always there for you to learn something new. Again, the Brilliant Tutor is not a new app or a new process. It's a completely new experience built right into the Brilliant app. Think of it as the personal tutor you always needed when you're learning something new. If you have questions, you need help explaining a concept, it is always there for you every step of the way to help you learn better. This new learning experience takes away the headaches of scheduling, driving to a tutor's house, finding a time that works for everyone, maybe conflicts in terms of the teaching styles. This tutor is there for you to explain the concepts, and Brilliant is making this approach, this system, accessible for everyone who needs it. Click the link below or scan the QR code to get started with Brilliant's tutor for free. You can upgrade to premium to unlock all courses, and right now, Planning Engineer viewers can get 20% off an annual subscription at brilliant.org/planning engineer. Thank you, Brilliant, for sponsoring this episode of Planning Engineer. That's what I think digital tools are just extraordinary, help you, but the thinking, the processing, all that needs to happen on paper first. If you don't put the effort, if you put the sweat, again, a lot of these ideas come from Ryan Holiday, and again, he's big on the note cards and big on taking the information and using it for creating the connections, thinking on paper. He doesn't really use, or at least doesn't talk too much about the digital side, but again, writing books and all that comes from a lot of thinking, a lot of processing, both on the paper side and the digital side. And I think the digital side is where you find a better approach for then distilling the information, making you are using the tools available to you. Obsidian has a great backlink process, and using their, let's see if I can pull it out here quickly. They have this graph view, which I'm sure you've seen online, and you can see a lot of the connections, and there's a lot of loose thoughts out in my graph, and some of them are pretty well connected. Let's see. So these are my wikis. So again, you can see a lot of backlinks and whatnot there. So when you look at these graphs, when you look at this information, you're able to process the information a lot better. So let's see how these can come into play. Again, both the digital and the analog world, and what I like using in terms of tools and the systems that help me think better and process information better. So this is the Paper Republic Grand Voyager in the pocket size. Usually carries one field notes. Sometimes I also carry these other two, which are kind of my collections and some indexing information. I tend to try to keep this one pretty slim. This on the go I carry with a simple gel pen. Sometimes even not even in the leather cover, is just with me. And this is where the information kind of gets processed on the day to day. Is where some of the loose thinking, sketching, some of the things that I've talked about in this channel, they get put into the pocket notebook and then get transferred to applicable systems such as the note cards, or back to Obsidian directly, or into my memory keeping notebook, which I do have right here. Again, you can see there's some stuff that I want to stick in there, but this is the notebook that I carry where all the kind of memory keeping happens, and just almost like a diary. And I just kind of put everything in here. Again, it may start as a bullet point on the pocket notebook, then gets transferred into the journal here, or it gets transferred into some of the more planning tools, such as this one right here, which I've talked about in the past as well. So this is basically just a catch-all. That's kind of what I'm getting at. And when you think about the pocket notebook, it's a very important tool in my kit. This is what comes with me. Sometimes I don't have space for the MeePlus, where it's kind of more of the productivity things happen. Again, projects and lists and all that stuff. The pocket notebook serves a perfect purpose for that. And then once this information gets processed, captured, maybe it gets into a note card, maybe into a journal entry, and maybe something surfaces from there that I want to keep for long term, that's when Obsidian comes into place. That's how kind of this vault has been growing to the point where I use it for a lot of my post thinking processes and kind of long-term storage. So I'm going to keep it at that. Again, we covered a lot of information here, and I want to kind of hear your feedback. What are some of the gaps that I have on my system? And again, thinking about the paper tools, the paper products that I use as someone that, again, loves kind of the stationary feel, the softness of the leather. Again, wax canvas also with the pens and the fountain pens and all that. These are tools that I love writing in, and not because I'm collecting them to just leave them on the bookshelf. They have marks, they have story behind them, and that's what I love about these things. Again, I love carrying them, and love checking out high quality products that bring me both joy and allow me to do the thinking I want to do a lot better. Digital tools come second. I've tried to use Notion for a long time. I've been using Obsidian and it has been working a little better. But at the end of the day, kind of keeping everything on a pocket notebook is going to be infinitely better, at least to me. So I want to hear from you. What are some of the things that you do only on paper, only on digital, maybe a combination of the two? And I want to hear and maybe learn from all of you on the comments below.